Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Good morning. Our devotional today will be led by former state representative, stand-up comedian, and mediator Jason Lorber of Burlington.
Good morning. As a stand-up comedian, I told people that the reason I ran for office was because I wanted to spend less time with my family. That was a joke, mostly. But when I served here as a state rep, I found that I got a new family. And together, we had lunch or drinks, we worked on bills or amendments, or we stabbed each other in the back. But to me, that's what family's all about. Like most families, we fight, and usually about really stupid stuff. But the deep danger isn't the fighting as much as the assumptions we make about each other. There's this TED Talk by Catherine Scholes who said, we start by thinking, if someone disagrees with me, they're just stupid. Or maybe they're not stupid, they just don't understand, they're ignorant. Or if they're not stupid and they do understand and they still disagree, then they're evil. And I like that. I mean, believing that if someone disagrees with me, they're either an idiot, an ignoramus, or Satan. It feels good, but it's wrong. Because even the colleagues I served with and voted against every single time, and some of you are still here, I know you're not stupid, I know you're not ignorant, and I know you're not evil. Most of you. But the question is, so how could you still disagree with me? And I think the answer is we have different values. We have different perspectives, different interests. In my work as a mediator, I work with people who deeply disagree, whether it's an employee and a boss, or two departments, a board and its staff, or two coworkers locked in conflict. They think they're arguing about time off policy, or pricing, or whether they should merge with another organization. But it's not that. And I can't do my job until they see each other. They can't solve their arguments until they understand each other's perspectives, interests, and values, and can say, this is what I hear you saying. And the other person responds, yes, you get it. That's when real progress happens. On that note, a rabbi once told me, you can only truly disagree with someone if you understand what they believe, why they believe it, and how it connects to their values. If you don't, you're not disagreeing with them. You're disagreeing with what you think they believe. And that's a waste of time. Plus, once you truly understand each other, you might find ways to incorporate their ideas, because now you can actually see the wisdom in them. Not always, but often. And that's how we get to better outcomes, not just louder debates. Maybe you haven't listened as well as you could have. I know I've been there. And because of that, we miss something valuable. My invitation to you is this. When someone sees the world differently from you, and they will, don't dismiss them. Don't label them. Ask them. Learn from them. Don't just hold your ground. Walk toward understanding. Because, like it or not, this is your family.
Members, will you please rise as Paige Austin Boulanger of South Burlington leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Members, earlier this morning, the Committee on Ways and Means voted out House Bill 454, which is an act relating to transforming Vermont's education governance, quality, and finance systems. Carrying an appropriation, the bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriations pursuant to House Rule 35A, pending its entry on the notice calendar. Members, we have received requests to read 3 House concurrent resolutions that the House and Senate adopted pursuant to the consent calendar. The first is HCR 53, which is a House concurrent resolution honoring Megan Humphrey for her outstanding leadership of HANDS. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas HANDS, Helping and Nurturing Diverse Seniors, is a Chittenden County nonprofit organization dedicated to providing food and resources for people aged 50 plus who struggle with food insecurity. And whereas for a quarter of a century, Megan Humphrey served as the inspirational leader of HANDS and ensured the organization fulfilled its mission as effectively as possible. And whereas under her guidance, HANDS evolved from offering Christmas dinners and friendship to seniors who were otherwise alone on the holiday to a far more extensive operation, providing nourishment and food guidance to seniors in Chittenden County. And whereas during the 2024 holiday season, HANDS distributed approximately 1,700 grocery gift cards to older adults struggling with food insecurity. And whereas HANDS has also established gardening programs at local senior centers, offered healthy eating workshops, and partnered with food shelves and other similar entities to expand the scope of its programs. And whereas after an outstanding quarter century developing services to feed older Chittenden County residents in need of food support, Megan Humphrey is concluding her leadership duties, but intends to remain involved in this endeavor as a HANDS volunteer. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly honors Megan Humphrey for her outstanding leadership of HANDS and wishes her every success in her future endeavors. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to Megan Humphrey and to HANDS.
Next is HCR 55, which is a House concurrent resolution recognizing April 2025 as the month of the military child in Vermont. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas many Americans and Vermonters may not be aware that there are more than 1.6 million children of U.S. military personnel. And whereas family pressures are magnified for children who remain stateside when a parent is deployed abroad, and the children of the approximately 1,000 Vermont National Guard personnel who may be deployed over the course of a year experience this disruption firsthand. And whereas military children's frequent relocation and corresponding lack of long-term community stability present them with an unwelcome distraction. And whereas in 1986, the U.S. Department of Defense first designated April as the month of the military child, and this annual event is part of a year-round initiative that brightens and improves these children's lives. And whereas related programs include the National Military Kids Connect, partnerships with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America and 4-H clubs, and Sesame Street for military families, as well as many local activities that Vermont National Guard's Child and Youth Services and other offices administer. And whereas as part of this special month, April 15th, 2025 is being observed as Purple Up for Military Kids Day, an opportunity for Americans to show solidarity with military families by wearing purple, a color that symbolizes all branch of the military. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly recognizes April 2025 as the month of the military child in Vermont. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Vermont National Guard Office of the Child and Youth Services.
And finally, HCR 77 is a House concurrent resolution recognizing April 2025 as Fair Housing Month in Vermont. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas for generations, millions of Americans have been denied the housing of their choice because of their race, ethnicity, religion, or disability. And whereas on April 11th, 1968, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1968, including Title VIII, known as the Fair Housing Act. And whereas Vermont's 1987 Fair Housing Act, as amended, prohibits discrimination in the rental, sale, or financing of housing based on race, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, marital status, religious creed, color, national origin, or disability of a person, or because a person intends to occupy a dwelling with one or more minor children, or because a person is a recipient of public assistance, or because a person is a victim of abuse, sexual assault, or stalking, as well as the denial of development permitting based on the income of prospective residents, making this law more protective than the federal statutes and among the most comprehensive in the nation. And whereas the Vermont Human Rights Commission, the Commission, was established in 1987 and tasked with enforcing Vermont's Fair Housing Act, among other state anti-discrimination provisions. And whereas in 2024 and 2025, the Commission has experienced an increase in fair housing inquiries and has processed more fair housing complaints than ever before. And whereas in recent months, the federal government has drastically deprioritized fair housing enforcement and education and has attempted to reduce or eliminate funding for agencies and organizations working for fair housing. And whereas inclusive, welcoming, and affordable communities promote diversity and a climate conducive to economic development. And whereas the current housing crisis impacts all Vermonters and disproportionately impacts people in protected classes. And whereas the state of Vermont remains committed to ensuring that everyone who lives in Vermont is entitled to the protections of Vermont's Fair Housing Act. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly recognizes April 2025 as Fair Housing Month in Vermont. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Vermont Human Rights Commission, the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, and the Vermont Legal Aid Housing Discrimination Law Project.
Are there any announcements? The chair has an introduction. You've heard the reading of the resolution honoring Megan Humphrey for her outstanding leadership at HANDS. She's also a small business owner and a photographer. We think of her as our community care coordinator in the Old North End. She's a mentor to so many youth and adults. If someone's sick, she drops off her homemade bread, which is amazing. She organizes little events to thank people. When our mail carrier was retiring, she organized thank you notes at all mailboxes in our neighborhood to make sure that he felt thanked. She is a bright light in our community. Megan and her husband Terry are seated in the gallery. Will the guest of the member of the chair please rise and be recognized? Are there any announcements? Member from Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, May 8th at 7 o'clock at the Cap Plaza, we are going to have our 31st annual Legislator Cabaret. For the new members, I want to explain that you may sing and dance if you would like, but you are not obligated to. It's more of a talent, not even talent, we don't need to be talented. It's more of a variety show kind of situation. You can do a skit with your committee, you can perform on your own. I just wanted to let everybody know there's a sign-up sheet that's gonna go out into our all-house email later this afternoon, and the member from Burlington and I are weirdly have become in charge of this situation. So best of luck to all of us, and I can't wait to see what everyone does this year.
Member from Waterbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We just heard a resolution commemorating April as Fair Housing Month in Vermont. And I say commemorating because in the current political climate, it's impossible to say celebrate. The fair housing, as we heard in the resolution, The Fair Housing and Public Accommodations Act in Vermont is very clear. It's illegal to refuse to sell, rent, or otherwise deny a housing opportunity to the very thorough list of protected classes here in Vermont. These protected classes have always been more numerous than the federal list of protected classes, and until recently, the federal list included gender identity. Because our protections have been more robust, organizations like the Human Rights Commission, the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, and Vermont Legal Aid have been able to respond to claims of housing discrimination. And in some cases, the Department of Housing and Urban Development has reimbursed some of the organizations for supporting those who feel that they've been discriminated against in court cases. Under new classifications of gender identity on the federal level, HUD will no longer reimburse such organizations if the person claiming discrimination does not adhere to these new classifications, even if the alleged discrimination has nothing to do with gender identity. Madam Speaker, our Department of Housing and Community Development recently issued the 2024 Fair Housing Analysis for Vermont, which was fully updated for the first time since 2014. Prefacing the report, the Commissioner of Housing and Community Development stated quite soberly that, quote, "Everyone deserves a safe, affordable place to live free from discrimination." Our statutes support that, and yet we as a state have not lived up to that simple standard. Key findings from the 2024 Fair Housing Analysis include that 30% of the respondents said they experienced housing discrimination. 56% of respondents who experienced discrimination cited a landlord or property manager as the source of the discrimination. 36% of respondents who experienced discrimination said it was based on disability, and 28% of respondents who experienced discrimination said it was based on their public assistance support. And so we all have work to do. This resolution honors the law we've passed, and by extension, the organizations who work to enforce our finest instincts, even when they're under capacity, underfunded, and overwhelmed during the extreme housing shortages we're experiencing and in the face of the dismantling of the social safety net on the federal level. Madam Speaker, please welcome to the People's House the organizations who endeavor to protect those who deserve a safe, affordable place to live, free from discrimination. They are in the balcony.
Will the guest of the member from Waterbury please rise and be recognized? Member from Brattleboro.
Madam Speaker, I move that your Committee on Ways and Means be relieved of S44, the taxation of vehicles used for forestry, and the same be committed to the Committee on Transportation.
The member from Brattleboro moves that the Committee on Ways and Means be relieved of Senate Bill 44 and that the same be committed to the Committee on Transportation. Are you ready for the member from Brattleboro?
45. I'm sorry.
45. Okay, let's try that again. The member from Brattleboro moves that the Committee on Ways and Means be relieved of Senate Bill 45 and that the same be committed to the Committee on Transportation. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have relieved the Committee on Ways and Means of Senate Bill 45 and committed the same to the Committee on Transportation. Are there any further announcements? Member from Calais.
Madam Speaker, we have with us today representatives from one of our most valuable and productive institutions, the Vermont Law and Graduate School. While I'm admittedly biased, Madam Speaker, given my connection, it's a place of incredible value to Vermont. Its law programs and Master of Law degrees bring over 400 students to Vermont, many of whom, after experiencing a Vermont winter, actually decide to make the state a permanent home for themselves and their families. Over 1,600 VLGS alumni work in Vermont. They serve state's attorneys' offices, public defenders' offices, agencies such as the Vermont Department of Health and the Vermont Public Utilities Commission, educational institutions, and of course, our law firms, large and small. 3 Vermont law graduates just happen to make up a majority of our Supreme Court. From my own experience, when a Vermont law professor comes to our State House cafeteria, I can't get in a word edgewise because they're deluged with greetings from graduates here in the building who are legislators, lobbyists, and staff. Madam Speaker, today, members may talk with representatives of the Vermont Law and Graduate School in the card room, and I ask that you now welcome them to the People's House.
Will the guest member from Calais please rise and be recognized? Member from Brattleboro.
Madam Speaker, you were in fact correct. I'm so sorry, I transcribed my numbers wrong. I move that your Ways and Means Committee be relieved of S46 and S45 stay right where it is.
The member from Brattleboro moves that the Committee on Ways and Means be relieved of Senate Bill 46, an act relating to the taxation of vehicles used for forestry operations, and that the same be committed to the Committee on Transportation. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have relieved the Committee on Ways and Means of Senate Bill 46 and committed the same to the Committee on Transportation. Member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, today we have with us a former representative from Burlington, Jason Lorber, who served in the Chittenden 3 district, which then became the 6-3 district and then became the 16 district, from 2005 to 2012. And he was succeeded by, he and his seatmate were succeeded by the Speaker and late Representative Kurt McCormick. Please welcome this member from Burlington, former member from Burlington, who does not, in fact, currently live in Morgan. Thank you.
Will the former member please rise and be recognized? Member from Milton.
Madam Speaker, in the balcony today, we have with us Vermont Army and Air National Guard service members and veterans, as well as the director and staff from the Vermont National Guard Family Programs Office, and several military families to include military youth. They are here today to commemorate April as Month of the Military Child, and in the spirit of this month, it seems appropriate to not only thank our military youth for their service, but to understand what they endure. These children experience long separations from their service member, endure moves and constant changes to accommodate the military mission, and often find themselves having to grow up faster than the youth of their same age as them. They have no choice but to be a military kid as their loved one has chosen to serve. It is also important to remember that Vermont does not have an active duty base. These children are geographically dispersed, and in some cases, they are the only military child in their school. For many, these schools don't even know that they have military youth in their classrooms, as these children and their families want them to experience normal, everyday living just like other children of their age. I'm sure that we can all agree that military youth are special, they are resilient, they are adaptable, and they're our heroes. Madam Speaker, I'd like to ask members of the House to recognize our guests today who are here in support of April as the Month of the Military Child. And again, they are seated up here in the balcony.
Will the guest and the member from Milton please rise and be recognized? Member from Williston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am thrilled to welcome 6 students from Colchester High School today who have taken on the project of understanding our process and following legislation for an honors project. I think it's especially fitting to have students here as we embark on a big week of considering education policy in this body and remembering that a lot of wonderful things are happening in our schools and kids are engaged and thriving. So welcome to these students.
Will the guest of the member from Williston please rise and be recognized? Member from Chittenden.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. First, I'd like to thank everyone who participated in the annual March Madness competition. I am pleased to report that we had a record 137 participants in the men's division, and we also had a good number in the women's division. I'm going to hold off on recognizing the winners of the competition until a special event at noon in the Cedar Creek Room that hopefully many of you will want to participate. There are not only the winners, but there are a couple of special recognition awards. But aside from all that, there was some exciting basketball over the weekend, and it gives me great privilege to recognize the Florida Gators, who won last night's thrilling championship game that went down to the wire. And on the women's side on Sunday, I would like to congratulate the Yukon Huskies for their... Enough said. Noontime in the Cedar Creek Room. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Member from Richmond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's always hard to follow a March Madness announcement, but your Committee on Education would like to recognize the member from Cornwall who had a birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday, member. Member from Fairfax.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to take a moment and thank the member from Chittenden for every year bringing us all together to celebrate March Madness. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I agreed to be the Women's Commissioner. I'm glad I did, but it's taken very seriously. So thank you, member.
Are there any further announcements? Member from Cornwall.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. When I started here 9 years ago, there were 4 of us who shared the same birthday. As far as I know, only 2 remain. So I would also pass along birthday wishes to the senior member from Hartford who also celebrated a birthday yesterday, and hopefully he is listening online.
Happy birthday, member. Member from Waitsfield.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of Representative Torre and myself, I wanted to just share some tragic news that our community has experienced. And this also affects a person who is very important to the 2 of us and to many members in this body, former Representative Carrie Dolan. Carrie was here on Saturday participating in the peaceful riot that many of us were at, and she was so happy and speaking so happily about her 2 daughters and how well they're both doing. And that afternoon, her daughter, Ellie, perished in a ski accident out west at the Palisades. And Ellie Curtis was 26. She was a Green Mountain Valley School ski racer. She went on to Dartmouth College and was a celebrated ski racer there. And she had been working at the Public Utility Commission in San Francisco, and Carrie really felt like this was her dream job, being able to advocate on behalf of the environment. So we are really struck with this tragic news, and I know many of you all are close with Carrie, and I know it's going to be a hard road for she and her family. And our community has, unfortunately, we've had a lot of experience with losing children too young. And I guess one thing I know about a loss like that is it's important to show our love and support for the family, even if it feels awkward and you don't know the right thing to say. It's important to reach out, and it's important to continue to talk about these beautiful children that we have lost. So if you could lead us in a moment of silence for Ellie Curtis. Thank you.
Will members and guests please rise? Members, we'll keep you posted as we learn more details, and for now they are accepting cards, and we keep their family in our thoughts and prayers. Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, orders of the day. We'll begin with Senate Bill 30, which is an act relating to updating and reorganizing the health insurance statutes in 8 VSA Chapter 107. The bill was referred to the Committee on Health Care, which recommends that the House propose to the Senate to amend the bill as printed in today's calendar. The member from Burlington, Representative Chena, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S30, an act relating to updating and reorganizing the health insurance statutes in 8 VSA Chapter 107.
Member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, as many, if not all, have experienced in this body, Legislative Council regularly freshens up pieces of the statutes as we pass bills that change the laws. A renumbering here, a rewording there. In addition to this ongoing maintenance, our trusty lawyers also do periodic deep cleanings of our statutes. This spring, we are sprucing up the health insurance statutes. S30 updates and reorganizes the health insurance chapter, 8 VSA Chapter 107, including using consistent language and terminology throughout the chapter. The bill also updates cross-references and other statutes as needed. Let's start this bill report by carrying over an emerging tradition from the Senate of writing haiku to describe these kinds of bills. 180 pages, 33 sections, one bill. S30 is chill. Using the metaphor of surgery on the body of the law, to understand these technical amendments, let's briefly review the revisions before this body today in S30. Section 1 on page 1 repeals the existing language of 8 VSA Chapter 107, essentially removing the old part from the body of the law. Section 2, which runs from page 1 to 164, installs the new language for 8 VSA Chapter 107, replacing the old part with a new, sleeker part that essentially does the exact same job. It simply updates terms, definitions, and other language to create consistency within the chapter, reorganizes 14 subchapters into 12 subchapters, implements current drafting guidelines and standards. Section 3 through Section 30, or I should say sections 3 through 30, which run from pages 164 to 180, make conforming revisions. These are corrections to statutory references outside of the health insurance statutes so that they align with the changes within the new health insurance chapter. It cleans up, these sections also clean up language using current drafting guidelines and standards, and we can think of this as the stitches, reconnecting this new part to the other parts of the body. Now, how do we make sure that the patient recovers from this operation? Section 31 on page 180 requires the Office of Legislative Counsel to update any additional cross-references to the statutes in 8 VSA Chapter 107 that use the numbering scheme in effect prior to the effective date of this act to conform with the new numbering scheme when preparing VSA for publication, essentially adding the finishing touches on anything we may have missed. And Section 32 states that the purpose of the act is to update and reorganize health insurance statutes, and that our intent is to make technical amendments that shall not supersede substantive amendments of other acts, even in the case of a conflict. It also allows existing rules, orders, bulletins, forms, and other guidance documents that refer to the existing numbering system to remain valid after passage until they can be updated to reflect the new renumbering. This is giving our systems dependent on this part of the law the time to heal and adjust to the changes. And Section 33 is the effective date, January 1st, 2026. Your House Healthcare Committee was asked to make one small amendment to this long bill that came over from the Senate. It adds back in a section of language that had been omitted in the process of revision that still needs to be in the law with an updated cross-reference. It adds in a missing quote. I don't know if I have to ask you to quote the actual amendment, Madam Speaker, so may I? No, okay. Quote, or, comma, in lieu thereof, quote, and it changes the effective date to September 1st, 2025, so that the changes are in effect when the Green Books are published. And House Healthcare supported this amendment to S30 on a straw poll vote of 11-0-0. So before you is a technical amendments bill that changes no policy or practice regarding health insurance, only the format in which the existing policy is stated. And so let's end this bill report with another haiku about the bill. Some shall haves to has, but not one may into shall, many revisions. Madam Speaker, we heard from one witness, Deputy Chief Counsel of the Office of Legislative Counsel, and your House Healthcare Committee approved favorably with amendment the final report of S30 on a vote of 11-0-0, and we ask for the body's support. Thank you.
So the question is, shall the House propose to the Senate to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health Care? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have proposed to the Senate to amend the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Members, the final item on our action calendar today is House Resolution 6, which is a House resolution amending House rules relating to the House Ethics Panel. This resolution was treated as a bill and referred to the Committee on Rules, which recommends that the resolution ought to be adopted. The member from Heartland, Representative Bartholomew, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the resolution.
H.R. 6, amending House rules relating to the House Ethics
Member from Heartland.
H.R. 6 was introduced by all 5 members of the House Ethics Panel. A resolution can take 3 different paths on its way to adoption, and as you just heard, this one was treated as a bill and referred to the House Committee on Rules. The committee voted the resolution out without amendment with a unanimous 7-0 vote. So why is this resolution important? Its most important goal is to increase transparency. If an ethics issue involving one of our members becomes fairly well known publicly, the panel currently cannot confirm or deny any details regarding a formal complaint or make any kind of public comment about how it is being addressed. The complainant and respondent are not obligated to confidentiality, but the panel members and staff are, and they're limited as to what they can publicly disclose. So this resolution amends our House rules to enable the panel to make public comments and issue closing statements. Without naming names, they will be able to disclose the nature of the complaint and how it was resolved. Again, the main goal here is to provide more transparency to the work of the ethics panel. In proposing these changes, the panel looked at other confidential disclosure provisions in similar regulatory agencies, considering procedures in place for the Vermont Supreme Court's Judicial Conduct Board, the Office of Professional Regulation, which regulates over 50 professions, the Vermont Criminal Justice Council, which oversees regulation of law enforcement officers, and also the New Hampshire State Legislature. Turning to the resolution itself, the resolution amends House Rule 90B, which is the House's ethics rule. And you can find this, the text of this, by searching for H.R. 6 on our legislative website. On page 2, you'll see a technical update to refer more generally to the procedure of the panel. In subdivision B, also on the second page, you'll find the first substantive change. It says, if a complaint before the panel or the pendency of an investigation by the panel is generally known to the public through independent sources, and the subject matter of the complaint is of broad public interest or speculation, and public confidence in the panel may be threatened because of the lack of information concerning the status of the investigation, the panel may issue a brief statement as it may deem appropriate to confirm the existence of the investigation, to clarify the procedural aspects of the investigation, and to explain that the respondent is entitled to due process. The next change comes in subdivision F and relates to reports made by the panel after it conducts an investigation. The panel shall issue a closure report regarding the final disposition of each complaint submitted to the panel. The closure report shall not identify the complainant, respondent, or any other person by name, but shall contain a summary of the complaint allegations, the final disposition of the complaint, and the basis therefor. And it goes on to say that the panel shall maintain its closure reports in a registry on its webpage. Next, in subdivision G, it goes into the overall confidentiality requirements of the panel. Except as provided in these rules and in the procedure of the panel, members of the panel and staff shall keep confidential any information received and any records produced or acquired in accordance with these rules or the procedure of the panel. However, the panel may disclose information under certain new circumstances. This takes the overall confidentiality requirements already set forth in the panel's procedures and codifies this into rule. So the panel may disclose information to a court of competent jurisdiction pursuant to a court order or to a state or federal law enforcement agency in the course of the agency's investigation, provided that the agency agrees to maintain the confidentiality of the information or records, or to the members or staff of either the Discrimination Prevention Panel or the Sexual Harassment Prevention Panel to inform an investigation under these rules by either panel, provided again that the members agree to maintain the confidentiality of the information or records provided. The resolution goes on to say that all records produced or acquired in accordance with these rules and in the procedure of the panel are not subject to the Public Records Act. And finally, in subsection H, the panel has a current requirement to annually report to the House the number of complaints filed, the disposition of these complaints, and the number of member requests for ethical advice. This resolution adds a general description to the topic of each complaint to this annual report. The panel is recommending this to correspond to a new statutory provision that was passed in last year's ethics bill that requires the ethics panel to report a general description of the topic of each complaint to the Vermont State Ethics Commission. So this is added to provide consistency between statute and our House rules. It's important to note that H.R. 6 applies only to the ethics panel and not the other panels included under House Rule 90. So it applies neither to the House Discrimination Prevention Panel nor the House Sexual Harassment Prevention Panel. The House Rules Committee heard from the chair of the House Ethics Panel and the clerk of the House. Again, the committee vote in favor of this resolution was 7-0, and we ask for your support in adopting this resolution.
So the question is, shall the resolution be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Members, that completes the orders of the day. The chair has two announcements. The first, the member from Newport City, Representative Page, is appointed to the Vermont Veterans Memorial Cemetery Advisory Board. And second, this is a reminder that we have a caucus of the whole. After we gavel out, please remain in the chamber if possible. It'll take us about 2 minutes to get onto a different YouTube site, page, whichever you call it. And so, and then after that, we'll caucus. Are there any further announcements? Member from Essex Junction.
Madam Speaker, House Democrats will caucus 5 minutes after the caucus of the whole in room 11.
Member from Poultney.
Madam Speaker, House Republicans will not be caucusing after the caucus of the whole.
Member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, House Progressives will be caucusing several minutes after we adjourn up in room 44.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none. Member from Poultney, can you please offer us a motion to adjourn until Wednesday, April 9th at 1 p.m.?
Madam Speaker, I make a motion this body stand in adjournment until Wednesday, April 9th, 2025 at 1 p.m.
You have heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And